Please comment where you are watching in the world. Thank you. His name was Nate. We matched on a dating app I'd started using after a long, dry stretch of singlehood. I wasn't in a rush for anything serious, but I missed being wanted. Missed the casual flirtation, the late-night texts, the possibility. His profile said he was 35, worked in law enforcement, liked hiking, grilling, and protecting the people he cares about. He looked fit, square-jawed, and confident. His messages were short but consistent. Nothing too charming, just steady interest and a touch of flattery. We talked for about a week. He told me he worked in a nearby city, first shift patrol. Said he'd been on the force for almost 10 years. He asked about my job, my dog, whether I ever hiked alone. At first, it felt like conversation. Then it started to feel like surveillance. Still, he was polite. So when he asked to meet, I didn't say no. I just said not yet. That's when things shifted. He started sending more messages. Not aggressive, just persistent. Wish I could see you. You'd be safer with me. I'm really good at reading people. I think we'd get along. I told him I wasn't comfortable meeting yet, that I didn't move fast. He said, I'm a cop. You don't have to worry. I blocked him the next day. It felt abrupt, but I trusted my instincts. Something about the way he said it, like his job was a guarantee of safety instead of a statement. Like I owed him trust just because of his badge. I didn't think about it again for a few days. Then the food started arriving. First, it was a large pepperoni pizza, paid in full, delivered to my apartment with no name attached. I thought it was a mistake. 2 days later, Thai food. Again, paid for. Again, no name. Then came the flowers. A bouquet of red roses addressed to the only one who gets it. No note. No sender. I called the restaurant. They said the order came online, no account info visible. The florist said the same. That night, I got a text from an unknown number. You look like you needed a good meal. You should smile more. I didn't respond. I blocked the number. The next morning, I reported it to the police. I didn't mention he was a cop. I didn't want to be brushed off or seen as dramatic. The officer took my statement, said if it continued, I could file a formal harassment complaint. The flowers stopped. But the sightings started. I worked in a small office downtown, glass front, easy to see in from the street. One afternoon, I looked up from my desk and saw a familiar silhouette leaning against a lamppost across the street. Sunglasses. Police-issue boots. Arms folded. He was watching me. I looked down. Looked again. He was gone. I tried to convince myself I imagined it. Until it happened again. And again. Once, I saw him in the parking lot behind my building. Another time near my gym. Each time, he never approached. Just stood. Watched. Then disappeared. I started taking different routes home. I stopped going places alone. I asked a coworker to walk me to my car after work. I filed another report. This time, I told them everything. They said they'd look into it. 2 days later, I received a call. Not from a detective, but from Nate. The number was blocked, but it was his voice. I heard you've been making noise. I didn't speak. You're embarrassing yourself, he said. You think anyone's going to believe you over me? I hung up. I drove straight to the station, the one he worked at, and asked to speak to someone in internal affairs. They said he had no prior complaints. They said he was well-liked. They said I seemed a little emotional. I left shaking. I started documenting everything. Every delivery. Every sighting. Every phone call. I bought a doorbell cam. Installed motion sensors. Told my landlord. Told my neighbors. One night, I got home and found a note under my mat. You should have said yes. It was written in block letters on police report paper. That was the last straw. I contacted a friend who worked in city legal. She helped me file a formal complaint with the department and a restraining order. We gathered everything, texts, screenshots, call logs, video stills. I sent copies to trusted friends, just in case. The department opened an investigation. Nate was placed on administrative leave. He never contacted me again. But every time I see a patrol car, I still check the badge number. Every time I hear boots on pavement, I still flinch. Because it wasn't just the stalking. It was the silence, the complicity, the idea that someone who promised to protect could turn that power into a weapon. And get away with it, almost. I matched with Barry on a Thursday night, after a long day of emails, meetings, and too much cold coffee. His profile said he was 34, worked in logistics, and liked grilling, road trips, and good bourbon. He had a strong jaw, neatly trimmed beard, and a dimple on one side that showed when he smiled. I won't lie, he was attractive. Confident, but not cocky. We started chatting that night. He was quick with responses, playful but respectful. We talked about music. He liked older country, I leaned indie folk. Food, he said he smoked his own ribs. And travel, he'd been to 22 states, mostly by car. There was something easy about it. Familiar. By Friday afternoon, he asked if I wanted to meet. I hesitated. I usually took longer, days, sometimes weeks before agreeing to anything in person. But he seemed solid, grounded. He offered to meet in public, said he'd drive to me, and even suggested a coffee shop I liked before I brought it up. We met at 2 p.m. on Saturday. He showed up in a black pickup, clean but clearly used. He wore jeans, a flannel, and a faded ball cap. He smiled when he saw me and gave a small wave before coming around to open the door for me. "Nice to meet you, finally," he said. His voice was lower than I expected. Slow, deliberate. We sat outside, ordered drinks, talked for about an hour. He asked a lot of questions about my job, my family, what I did for fun. Nothing felt invasive. Just curious. But there were a few things that stood out. First, he had a habit of redirecting the conversation when I asked about his past. He'd answer vaguely, then pivot. "You said you worked in logistics. What kind exactly?" "Oh, inventory systems. Anyway, what about you? How'd you get into nonprofit work?" Second, he mentioned guns. A lot. Not aggressively. Not in a way that made it sound like a threat, but casually, like he was talking about gardening or baseball. "I've got a few collectibles at home. Mostly locked up. Part of a hobby. I used to go shooting with my dad. Good way to clear your head." Finally, his age didn't quite match his face. He looked older than 34. Not dramatically, but the lines around his eyes, the way he talked about certain life events, it didn't add up. I asked once, jokingly, "You sure you're not 40? He laughed. "I've got an old soul." Still, I felt safe enough. We were in public. He was polite. The conversation was flowing. Then he asked if I wanted to see his place. "I've got some smoked brisket in the fridge I could reheat," he said. "And I've got this bourbon I think you'd like." I paused. He noticed. "No pressure," he added. "Just figured we're getting along." Part of me wanted to say no. But a bigger part, curious, flattered, said yes. His house was about 20 minutes away, tucked off a rural road just outside city limits. As we drove, he pointed out landmarks, told me stories about growing up nearby. When we pulled into the driveway, I noticed the lack of neighbors. Trees on both sides. No streetlights. Just the sound of gravel under the tires and cicadas buzzing in the dusk. The house was neat. Small but well kept. He unlocked the door and gestured for me to enter first. Inside, it smelled like cedar and something faintly metallic. He offered me a drink, water or bourbon. I chose water. While he poured it, I glanced around. The living room was clean but sparse. A leather recliner, a wooden coffee table, a large TV mounted on the wall. No photos. No personal touches. Just a single bookshelf with military history titles and a few hunting magazines. "You want to see the collection?" he asked, handing me the glass. I blinked. "Collection?" "The guns," he said. "Figured you'd be curious." I hadn't said I was. Not once. But I followed him anyway. He led me down a short hallway to a locked door. Pulled a key from his pocket and opened it. The room was a shrine. Rifles mounted on the wall. Pistols in glass cases. A workbench with cleaning tools. Ammo boxes stacked neatly in the corner. Posters of vintage gun ads. Everything clean, polished, and meticulously arranged. "This," he said, "is where I spend most of my free time." I nodded slowly. "Impressive," I said, though it wasn't what I meant. He picked up a revolver and held it out toward me. "Ever shot one of these?" I took a step back. "No." He laughed. "It's not loaded. Relax." I didn't. He put it down and turned to me, suddenly serious. I don't invite just anyone here." I swallowed. "Okay. I mean it," he continued. "Most people don't get it. They think it's dangerous. But it's not. It's about control. Precision. History." I nodded. "You're quiet," he added. "Just processing," I said. "It's a lot." He tilted his head. "You scared?" I paused. "No," I lied. He smiled. "Good." We returned to the living room. I said I should head out soon. It was getting late. He didn't argue. But as I stood, he said, "Hey, before you go, can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Why'd you swipe right?" I blinked. "What? What was it? The beard? The truck? The idea of something a little rougher around the edges. I forced a smile. You seemed interesting. He nodded slowly. You know, I lied about my age. I stiffened. I'm not 34, he said. I'm 41. I said nothing. He grinned. Still want to leave? I grabbed my bag. He didn't stop me, but he watched as I walked to the door. Didn't move. Didn't say goodbye. That night, I blocked his number. Deleted the app. Scrubbed my social media of anything he might have seen. I never heard from him again. It started with a snake emoji. That's what he sent after I commented on his profile bio. Snake dad. Terrarium engineer. Cold-blooded friends only. I thought it was a joke. Or at least ironic. His pictures didn't scream exotic pet guy. He looked more like a barista or a plant shop owner. Soft flannel, sleepy eyes, a tattoo of a fern leaf on his wrist. We matched on a Sunday night. He told me his name was Eli. He was 31, worked as a freelance illustrator, and lived about 15 minutes from me. He sent me a picture of his studio, a second bedroom with 3 bookshelves and a large glass tank in the corner. She's shy, he said, referring to the snake. But she's good company. I wasn't sure how to respond. I've never liked snakes. But I tried to keep an open mind. People love all kinds of pets. I figured if he was responsible and gentle with it, it was just a quirky detail. He asked if I wanted to get a drink later that week. I said yes. We met at a bar near my apartment, low lighting, good cocktails, quiet enough to talk. He arrived wearing a canvas jacket and a crossbody bag. Nice to finally meet you, he said. He smiled, then opened the bag. Inside was the snake. A small, pale corn snake with rust-colored markings. Coiled in a clear plastic container with air holes. This is Persephone, he said, like he was introducing a friend. I laughed, thinking it was a joke. It wasn't. He placed the container on the table. She gets anxious when she's alone too long, he said. But don't worry, she's contained. The bartender did a double take. I tried to act normal. We ordered drinks. I tried to focus on the conversation. He was interesting, in a rambling, intense kind of way. Talked about Greek mythology, reptile heating lamps, and how he'd once designed an entire deck of tarot cards based on venomous animals. I nodded, sipped my drink, and tried not to look at the snake. When he asked if I wanted to feed her, I said no, thank you. He teased me, said I was emotionally distant. I laughed awkwardly. When the bill came, he insisted on paying. I said I had to head home, early morning. He asked if I wanted to see his place. Just for a minute, he said. Persephone likes new people. I declined. He didn't push, but his smile faded. Maybe next time, he said. I walked home, half smiling at the strangeness of it all. Later that night, he texted. You have a good energy. Persephone was calm around you. That's rare. I didn't respond. The next morning, he sent another. I had a dream you were holding her. She wrapped around your wrist like a bracelet. I muted the conversation. 2 days later, I came home from work to find him standing on my porch, holding the same crossbody bag. I froze. He waved. I think Persephone escaped, he said. I blinked. What? I was cleaning her tank, and she slipped out. I think she might have followed your scent. I stared at him. She's really smart, he added. They can track heat and pheromones. I took a slow breath. Eli, you can't just show up at my house. He looked confused. Hurt. I thought you'd want to help. I don't, I said firmly. You need to leave. He didn't move. I pulled out my phone. He saw and stepped back. Okay. No need to call anyone. I just thought. You thought wrong, I said. He walked away, muttering something about people being closed off. I locked the door, closed the blinds, sat on the floor, and tried to slow my heart down. That night, I texted a friend and told her everything. She told me to report him. I didn't yet. I wanted to believe it was just a weird misunderstanding, that he'd leave it alone. But the next morning, there was a note tucked under my windshield wiper. She still hasn't come home. I think she's with you. I reported it. The officer raised an eyebrow when I explained. A snake? Yes, I said. But it's not about the snake. They filed a report. The next day, I found a shed snakeskin on my doorstep. I bought a camera. Eli never came back. I don't know if Persephone ever existed. Maybe she did. Maybe she didn't. But I still check under my bed before I sleep. It's strange how the worst years of your life start like any other. There was no warning. No sense of dread. Just another morning making coffee, Another text from Amy asking if I'd remembered to buy wipes. Another diaper changed half asleep, one sock still on. Our son Ben was 6 months old. Our cat, Bugs, was 10. Amy and I had been together for 5 years, living in a rental house just outside of town. It wasn't perfect, but it felt like a life, the kind you build slowly, one target run at a time. She was always tired. So was I. But we were new parents. That's what everyone said. We were supposed to be tired. We were supposed to snap at each other and forget to say thank you. We were supposed to fall asleep on the couch while the baby monitor blinked quietly in the corner. I thought we were fine. She started working again around month 7. Just part-time. A few shifts a week at the coffee shop she'd worked at before the pregnancy. She said she needed to feel normal again. I supported it. I took on more of the nighttime feedings. I stayed home Saturdays while she drove across town to help her mom with errands. I didn't question it. I should have. The first sign was Bugs. He stopped sleeping at the foot of our bed, started hiding under the crib, yowling when Amy entered the room. He'd always been a skittish cat, but this was different. Maybe he's just stressed, she said. You know, with the baby and everything. But he wasn't stressed around me. Only her. Then she changed her passcode. She used to hand me her phone all the time, to look at recipes, to answer texts. Now she kept it face down, even when it buzzed. She started sleeping with it under her pillow. I mentioned it once, lightly. She rolled her eyes. You need to chill. You're acting paranoid. I let it go, because I didn't want to see it. I didn't want to believe that the woman sitting across from me, the one who'd screamed during childbirth, sobbed with joy when Ben first laughed, whispered, "I love you," with cracked lips and half-closed eyes, was already halfway gone. 3 weeks later, she was gone completely. I came home from work to find the house half empty. Her clothes, her cosmetics, the diaper bag, the baby monitor, gone. So was Bugs. There was no note, no message, just a text, sent 20 minutes before I walked in the door. I'm leaving. Don't call me. I'll be in touch about Ben. I called anyway. Straight to voicemail. I called her mom. She hung up. I called the police. They said it wasn't kidnapping, she was the mother. Unless there was a custody agreement, there wasn't anything they could do. I sat on the floor of Ben's empty room, holding a single sock, and tried to breathe. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I filed for emergency custody. My lawyer told me it could take weeks. Months. That courts tend to favor mothers, especially when the child is still nursing. But she's not nursing, I said. She stopped at 4 months. He nodded, but didn't look hopeful. I kept the nursery ready. I washed the crib sheets every Sunday. I vacuumed the carpet so it wouldn't gather dust. I left Bugs' bowl on the kitchen floor. I didn't hear from her for 41 days. Then came the letter, typed formal, from a family law firm in the neighboring state. Amy was seeking full custody and child support. I wanted to scream. Instead, I handed it to my lawyer. We filed a response, requested shared custody, offered proof of paternity, photos, receipts, witnesses. The court date was set for October. In the meantime, I found out about the other man. She didn't tell me. Her sister did, accidentally, during a brief messenger conversation where I tried to find out if Ben was okay. He's fine, she said. Amy and Derek take good care of him. I stared at the screen. Who's Derek? Her boyfriend. You didn't know? No, I didn't. I found their social media accounts. Amy had blocked me, but I saw enough through other profiles. Photos of them at the zoo. A blurry shot of Ben in a stroller. A caption that said, Family Day. I almost threw my phone. Instead, I downloaded every photo as evidence. The court hearing was surreal. Amy wore a blazer. Her hair was curled. She didn't look at me once. She claimed I was emotionally unstable, that I struggled with work-life balance, that I had no bond with the child. I sat there, listening to her lawyer spin our life into a cautionary tale. I wanted to shout. I changed his diapers. I held him through colic. I sang to him at 2 a.m. while you stared at your phone. But I stayed quiet. I let my lawyer speak. We reached a temporary agreement, joint custody, alternating weekends. Supervised visits for the first month. I saw Ben for 2 hours that first Saturday. He didn't recognize me. He cried when I held him. Amy watched from the corner of the room, arms crossed, saying nothing. When I handed him back, she sighed. He's used to Derek now. I wanted to ask about Bugs. I couldn't find the words. Over the months, the custody schedule stabilized. I got to see Ben every other weekend. He started recognizing me, started reaching for me. Then, one day in December, he called me Dada. I cried in the car afterward. Amy never brought bugs. I asked once. She shrugged. He's better off with us. But he's my cat. She raised an eyebrow. He sleeps on Derek's chest now. Seems like he chose. I filed a small claims suit for property theft. It went nowhere. The court said pets were marital property, and since we were never married, it was a civil matter. I posted flyers, offered money, tried to find a way to get him back. Nothing worked. I started sleeping with a stuffed cat on my bed. Not because it helped, but because it reminded me that I'd lost more than a relationship. I'd lost the quiet parts of my life. The ones that didn't cry or demand bottles. The ones that just purred softly beside me when the world got too loud. It's been 2 years now. Ben is 3. He knows who I am. He laughs when I chase him around the park. He tells me about preschool, about his stuffed dinosaur, about how Derek makes the best pancakes. I nod and smile and pretend I'm not bleeding inside. I haven't seen Amy in months. Everything goes through the court now. She still asks for more child support. Still complains that I don't understand what it takes to be a single mother. I don't argue. I just pay what I'm told. Sometimes I dream about bugs. In the dream, he's curled up on the windowsill, sun on his fur, tail twitching slowly. I reach out to pet him, and he looks up at me with those green eyes, and then I wake up, and the room is quiet, and empty, and cold. They say time heals, but time also dulls, smudges the edges of memory until you're not sure what was real and what you just wanted to be real. I keep Ben's drawings on my fridge, and a photo of bugs on my nightstand. I used to think I had a good radar for people. I wasn't naive. I didn't get swept up in fantasy. I didn't fall for lines or let charm override instinct. I knew what boundaries looked like, and I knew what it meant to protect them. At least, I thought I did. His name was Evan. We matched on Tinder early one Saturday morning. I was curled up in bed with a cup of coffee, swiping half-heartedly between emails and laundry. His profile caught my eye, not because he was especially attractive, though he was, but because he looked normal, like someone you'd see at a farmer's market or working behind a laptop at a cafe. His bio said, full-stack developer. I write code and try to cook. Looking for something real, no pressure. Bonus if you love dogs and sarcasm. I messaged first. What's your best dish, chef? He replied within minutes. Taco night. I make my own tortillas. That's not sarcasm. We chatted all day. He was funny in a dry, intelligent way. Not performative, not overly flirtatious, just quick-witted and curious. He asked thoughtful questions about my work, nonprofit admin, my hobbies, true crime podcasts, painting, hiking, even my least favorite movie genre, found footage horror. I liked the way he listened, or seemed to. By Monday, we'd exchanged numbers and moved to texting. By Wednesday, we were FaceTiming. By Friday, he suggested we meet. I hesitated. He lived 45 minutes away in a neighboring city. I wasn't comfortable meeting at night, and I didn't want to invite a total stranger to my apartment. But he offered a compromise. We could watch a movie at my place, and he'd bring dinner. No pressure. He'd leave by 11. I said yes. I told myself it was fine. I had pepper spray, neighbors on both sides, and a dog, an aging but loyal retriever named Goose. I sent a friend his name, number, and a photo. If I go missing, blame Evan the tortilla guy, I joked. He arrived with Thai food and a bottle of sparkling water. No alcohol. He said he didn't drink much, which I appreciated. He was polite, funny, and smelled faintly of sandalwood and laundry detergent. Goose liked him immediately, which felt like a good sign. We ate on the couch, watched a comedy special, talked about everything from AI ethics to childhood injuries. He was easy to be around. Familiar, somehow. When he left just before 11, he hugged me and said, "Let me know if I pass the background check." I laughed and said I'd let him know in the morning. We texted late into the night. And the next day. And the next. He didn't push for anything. If I took hours to respond, he never complained. He sent me photos of his home-cooked meals, his cluttered workspace, his dog, a scruffy terrier named Pixel. We made plans for him to come over again the following weekend. This time, he stayed longer. We cooked together. He asked to help with dishes. He rubbed Goose's belly like they'd known each other for years. When I went to shower, I told him to make himself at home. I left the door cracked, as I always did, since Goose liked to nap on the rug nearby. When I stepped out of the steam, towel wrapped around me, I saw the reflection in the vanity mirror. The door was wider than I left it, and Evan was standing just beyond the frame. Not in the hallway. Not calling my name. Just watching. He looked startled when I turned. "Oh, sorry," he said quickly. "I was just looking for the bathroom again. Got confused." I nodded, uneasy. "It's the other door," I said. "Down the hall." He apologized again and disappeared. I told myself it was nothing, that maybe he really had just gotten turned around. The hallway was small, and the doors were nearly identical. But something didn't sit right. After that, I noticed little things. The way he glanced at my locked bedroom door when I left the room. The way my phone would sometimes vibrate with unknown login attempts. The way Goose, who rarely barked, growled once when Evan reached to pet him. Still, I didn't want to overreact. He hadn't touched me without permission. He hadn't said anything inappropriate. He was generous, respectful, and always left when I asked. Then one night, I came home from work and found my bathroom cabinet slightly open. Inside, my phone charger was gone, and a small USB drive I didn't recognize was plugged into an outlet near the sink. I stared at it for a full minute before pulling it out. I didn't plug it in. I took it to a coworker, someone in our IT department, and asked him to check it on an isolated system. It contained dozens of images. All of me. In my apartment. In the shower. In bed. Getting dressed. Dozens of angles. Most of them taken from barely hidden locations. A gap in the closet door, the vent above the bathroom, the corner of my bookshelf. I couldn't breathe. I called the police. They took a report. Collected the drive. Took photos of my apartment. They found a tiny camera taped behind the vent, so small I never would have noticed. Another one behind the mirror in my bedroom. All of them were Wi-Fi enabled, streaming to a remote server. They told me it would take time to trace them. I blocked Evan, reported him on every platform, sent screenshots and statements to Tinder, who said they'd investigate the account. He disappeared. No texts. No calls. No knocks at the door. The police never found him. His apartment had been vacated. The last name he gave me wasn't real. The phone number was prepaid. Pixel, his dog, had been stock photos. The food photos? Pulled from Pinterest. Everything he showed me had been a performance. Everything I believed was constructed. I changed the locks. Moved apartments. Got a security system. Goose slept beside my bed every night. I used to think the worst thing that could happen in a relationship was cheating. It's not. It's realizing the person you live with, the person you laugh with, the person who holds your hand in grocery store aisles, doesn't just disagree with you. They don't see your child as a person. They see them as a problem to fix. But I'm getting ahead of myself. When I met Rick, I wasn't looking for anyone serious. I'd already gone through the exhausting post-divorce dating cycle. The serial brunchers, the guys who said, "I'm a nice guy," too often. The ones who thought being a dad to my daughter Zoe meant they'd get husband perks without husband responsibilities. Rick seemed different. We met at a friend's birthday dinner. He was charming in a quiet, observant way. He asked thoughtful questions. He didn't flinch when I mentioned I had a kid. In fact, he smiled and said, "Raising a person? That's the most important job in the world." He wore flannel shirts, read biographies for fun, and once helped a stranger push a stalled car out of an intersection while on the phone with me. I told myself, maybe this is the kind of man I need. Grounded, solid, mature. Zoe was 10 when Rick and I started dating. She was cautious at first, she always is, but she warmed up to him faster than I expected. He brought her puzzles, asked about her favorite books, cooked waffles on Sundays, and let her pick the toppings. He said, "I don't want to be her dad. I just want to be someone she can count on." I believed him. After a year, he moved in. The first signs were small. He didn't like when Zoe watched certain YouTubers. Too much attitude, he said. He thought she wore leggings too often. She's growing up fast. You don't want to send the wrong message. He rolled his eyes at her sarcasm, said she was borderline disrespectful. I told him she was just finding her voice. He said boundaries were important. I agreed, up to a point. But the point kept moving. When Zoe turned 13, she started experimenting with makeup. Nothing wild. A little concealer for the occasional breakout. Lip gloss. Mascara. She watched tutorials and practiced blending eyeshadow with the focus of a scientist. It became a hobby, something she did for fun, not for attention. At first, Rick ignored it. But one evening, when Zoe came down for dinner wearing a dusty rose lip tint and softly winged eyeliner, He stared like she'd shown up in fishnets and stilettos. He didn't say anything right away. Just blinked. Then, after dinner, he pulled me aside in the hallway. "Are you really okay with that?" he asked. "With what?" "The face paint." "It's makeup, Rick. She's 13. It's not permanent." He frowned. "It sends a message." "No, it doesn't. It's just a form of expression. A phase." "You mean like when kids start rebelling and sneaking out and lying to their parents?" His voice was steady, but there was a warning in it. I crossed my arms. "She has straight A's, she's polite, and she still hugs me before bed. If eyeliner is the hill you want to die on, be my guest." He dropped it. Or so I thought. The next week was quiet. Tense, but quiet. Zoe wore less makeup around him. I didn't tell her to. I didn't need to. She noticed the way he looked at her when she wore it. The way his mouth tightened. The way he stopped asking how her day was. She started doing her mascara in the bathroom at school. I hated that. One night, I found her wiping it off in the car before we got home. "Why are you taking it off?" I asked. She shrugged. "He doesn't like it." I wanted to scream. Instead, I said, "You don't need to hide parts of yourself to make someone else comfortable." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. The breaking point came on a Tuesday. Zoe had a big presentation at school, her first group project in front of the entire class. She'd spent a week preparing. That morning, she came down in her school uniform with a touch of shimmer on her eyelids and a glossy pink lip. She looked poised. Happy. Rick took one look at her and said, "You're not going to school like that." Zoe froze. "Why not?" "That's not appropriate. You're 13, not 23. It's just lip gloss. It's too much." I stepped in. "Rick, it's fine. It's a special day. She's giving a presentation." He raised his eyebrows at me. "You're enabling this." I almost laughed. "Enabling what?" "Confidence." He scoffed and walked out of the room. Zoe's hands were shaking as she packed her bag. I kissed her forehead and said, "You look beautiful. And you're going to crush that presentation." She beamed. But I saw the flicker of anxiety in her eyes. That night, Rick was quiet during dinner. Stiff. After Zoe went to bed, I tried to talk to him. "You blew that out of proportion," I said. "She's turning into someone I don't recognize." "She's growing up." "She's growing up too fast." "You think makeup is making her grow up too fast?" He leaned against the kitchen counter and said, "You're too relaxed. That's why she doesn't respect boundaries." I stared at him. "You mean your boundaries?" He didn't answer. I went to bed angry. So did he. The next day, everything fell apart. I came home from work early. Zoe had a dentist appointment. As I unlocked the front door, I heard shouting. Zoe was crying. Rick's voice echoed down the hallway. I dropped my bag and ran upstairs. Her bedroom door was open. Rick stood in the middle of the room, holding a trash bag. The floor was littered with makeup brushes, torn pages from her notebooks, broken compacts, and ripped posters. Zoe sat on the bed, clutching her backpack to her chest, tears streaming down her face. "What the hell is going on?" I shouted. Rick turned to me. "She lied to me. She brought makeup to school. She didn't lie. She didn't owe you an explanation. She disrespected the rules. There were no rules. I told her last week, no more of this nonsense. And I told you it's not your call." He dropped the bag. "I'm trying to raise her right. She's not yours to raise." The silence that followed was thick and final. Zoe looked at me with wide, terrified eyes. And I knew. I turned to her. "Go pack a bag." She didn't ask why. She just moved. We stayed in a hotel that night. I texted my sister and asked if we could crash at her place for a while. She said yes. Zoe barely spoke. She sat next to me on the bed, watching cartoons with the volume muted. Her face was blank. I ordered room service. She picked at her fries but didn't eat. Later, when I tucked her in, she whispered, "Is he going to come here?" "No," I said. "He won't." "Promise?" "I swear." I returned to the house the next morning while Rick was at work. I took photos of the damage. I gathered our essentials. I left his key on the kitchen counter. Then I called my landlord. The lease was in my name. I told him Rick and I had separated, and that he'd be moving out. He asked if I was safe. I said yes. He said, "Good. Let me know if you need anything." I filed for a restraining order later that week, not because I thought Rick would hurt us, but because I wouldn't take that chance. He sent a string of texts. Apologies. Accusations. Please. Threats. I blocked his number. It's been 6 months. Zoe's room at my sister's house is covered in stickers and LED lights. She wears makeup when she wants. She's learning to do eyeliner better than me. We still talk about that day sometimes. Not often, but enough. She says she never hated Rick. Just feared him. I think that's worse. I met Ella at a bookstore. I know how that sounds. Romantic. Cliché. The kind of meet cute they put in indie films where everyone wears scarves and drinks coffee out of chipped mugs. But it wasn't like that. She dropped a copy of The Bell Jar on my foot, and when I handed it back to her, she said, "This book will either save you or destroy you." Then she smiled. She had one of those smiles that made you want to figure her out. Like she was letting you in on something, but only part of it. And I've always been the type who wants the whole story. We got coffee that day. Talked about Sylvia Plath, film noir, dreams we couldn't remember, and what grief does to people. She said she'd lost her dad the year before. I told her about my sister's car accident. We were both fluent in a kind of soft sadness. It felt like connection. We started seeing each other regularly. At first, it was great. Ella was intense, sure, but charming. She wrote notes on napkins and left them in my coat pockets. She sent me songs at midnight and called me her soft place to land. She made me feel needed. Important. I introduced her to my friends. They liked her. Mostly. My friend Jason said, "She's cool, but she stares at people like she's memorizing them for later." I laughed it off. I didn't want to see it. The first red flag came about 6 weeks in. We'd made plans to get dinner. Last minute, I had to cancel. My boss asked me to stay late. I texted her, apologized, promised to make it up to her. She didn't respond. Later that night, when I got home, I found a note taped to my door. "When people stop choosing you, believe them." There was no signature, just her handwriting. I texted her and said, "Hey, are you okay?" She didn't answer for 2 days. Then she showed up at my work with muffins and said, "Sorry I ghosted. I was just in my feelings." I let it go, because I wanted the good parts. The soft parts. The parts that made me feel seen. It got worse slowly. She started texting constantly. Not just during the day, but at 3 a.m., 4 a.m. If I didn't respond within a few minutes, she'd send more. "Are you mad at me? Did I say something wrong? You're probably with someone else." Once, I was in a meeting and came back to 27 messages. When I tried to set boundaries, she'd cry. "I just feel so much," she'd say. "You're the first person who hasn't left." I'd hold her. Tell her I wasn't going anywhere. I didn't know that was exactly the wrong thing to promise. The day I tried to break up with her, she collapsed. Not physically, but emotionally. We were sitting on my couch. I told her gently that things were moving too fast, that I needed space, that I cared about her but didn't feel stable with her. She stared at me for a long time. Then she said, "If you leave, I'll kill myself." Just like that. Flat tone. No tears. No drama. I was frozen. I asked if she was serious. She nodded. I didn't know what to do. I'd never been in that situation. I told her I wouldn't leave. That we could talk later. That she should call her therapist. Then I walked her to her car. She kissed me on the cheek and said, "You're mine. You don't get to leave." Over the next few weeks, I started pulling away. Quietly. Slowly. I stopped answering her late-night texts. I stopped inviting her over. I told her I was busy with work. I started seeing a counselor. She started showing up at my apartment unannounced. Once at 6 a.m., holding coffee and a photo album. Another time at midnight, crying on my doorstep. I asked her to stop. She didn't. Eventually I told her, firmly, that we were done. That I was scared. That this wasn't love. She screamed. Called me a coward. Said I'd abandoned her like everyone else. Then she walked away. I thought that was it. It wasn't. The next morning, my car windshield was smashed. There was a note under the wiper. "You're not scared enough yet." I filed a police report. They took it down, but nothing happened. That night, I got 43 missed calls from a blocked number. Voicemails alternating between sobbing and threats. I changed my number. She found my new one within a week. I don't know how. She started emailing me from different accounts. Messaging my friends. Posting cryptic things on social media. My friend Rachel got a DM that said, "He's lying to you. He's not who you think." She messaged my mom. Told her I hit her. I had never laid a hand on her. I filed for a protective order. It was granted. For 30 days. I started staying with friends. Installed cameras. Slept with my bedroom door locked. One night, I came home and found my apartment trashed. Broken glass. Scribbles on the mirror. A picture of me and my sister torn in half. The cops came. Took fingerprints. Said there was no sign of forced entry. I changed the locks. The next morning, my neighbor said she saw Ella in the hallway the night before, holding a knife. She didn't call the cops because she thought Ella lived with me. I called the police again. They found her 2 days later, sitting in a park a block from my building, holding the knife in her lap. She was arrested, charged with harassment, trespassing, and possession of a weapon. She cried in court, said I ruined her life, said she still loved me. I didn't speak. That was 7 months ago. She took a plea deal. Got probation. Court-ordered therapy. I haven't seen her since. But sometimes I think I hear her voice in crowds. Sometimes I still check under my car before I get in. I keep the restraining order taped inside my closet. It's strange how the worst years of your life start like any other. There was no warning. No sense of dread. Just another morning making coffee. Another text from Amy asking if I'd remembered to buy wipes. Another diaper changed half asleep. One sock still on. Our son Ben was 6 months old. Our cat, Bugs, was 10. Amy and I had been together for 5 years, living in a rental house just outside of town. It wasn't perfect, but it felt like a life, the kind you build slowly, one target run at a time. She was always tired. So was I. But we were new parents. That's what everyone said. We were supposed to be tired. We were supposed to snap at each other and forget to say thank you. We were supposed to fall asleep on the couch while the baby monitor blinked quietly in the corner. I thought we were fine. She started working again around month 7. Just part-time. A few shifts a week at the coffee shop she'd worked at before the pregnancy. She said she needed to feel normal again. I supported it. I took on more of the nighttime feedings. I stayed home Saturdays while she drove across town to help her mom with errands. I didn't question it. I should have. The first sign was Bugs. He stopped sleeping at the foot of our bed, started hiding under the crib, yowling when Amy entered the room. He'd always been a skittish cat, but this was different. Maybe he's just stressed, she said. You know, with the baby and everything. But he wasn't stressed around me. Only her. Then she changed her passcode. She used to hand me her phone all the time, to look at recipes, to answer texts. Now she kept it face down, even when it buzzed. She started sleeping with it under her pillow. I mentioned it once lightly. She rolled her eyes. You need to chill. You're acting paranoid. I let it go, because I didn't want to see it. I didn't want to believe that the woman sitting across from me, the one who'd screamed during childbirth, sobbed with joy when Ben first laughed, whispered, I love you, with cracked lips and half-closed eyes, was already halfway gone. 3 weeks later, she was gone completely. I came home from work to find the house half empty. Her clothes, her cosmetics, the diaper bag, the baby monitor, gone. So was Bugs. There was no note, no message, just a text, sent 20 minutes before I walked in the door. I'm leaving. Don't call me. I'll be in touch about Ben. I called anyway. Straight to voicemail. I called her mom. She hung up. I called the police. They said it wasn't kidnapping, she was the mother. Unless there was a custody agreement, there wasn't anything they could do. I sat on the floor of Ben's empty room, holding a single sock, and tried to breathe. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I filed for emergency custody. My lawyer told me it could take weeks. Months. That courts tend to favor mothers, especially when the child is still nursing. But she's not nursing, I said. She stopped at 4 months. He nodded, but didn't look hopeful. I kept the nursery ready. I washed the crib sheets every Sunday. I vacuumed the carpet so it wouldn't gather dust. I left Bugs' bowl on the kitchen floor. I didn't hear from her for 41 days. Then came the letter, typed formal, from a family law firm in the neighboring state. Amy was seeking full custody and child support. I wanted to scream. Instead, I handed it to my lawyer. We filed a response, requested shared custody, offered proof of paternity, photos, receipts, witnesses. The court date was set for October. In the meantime, I found out about the other man. She didn't tell me. Her sister did, accidentally, during a brief messenger conversation where I tried to find out if Ben was okay. He's fine, she said. Amy and Derek take good care of him. I stared at the screen. Who's Derek? Her boyfriend. You didn't know? No, I didn't. I found their social media accounts. Amy had blocked me, but I saw enough through other profiles. Photos of them at the zoo. A blurry shot of Ben in a stroller. A caption that said, "Family Day." I almost threw my phone. Instead, I downloaded every photo as evidence. The court hearing was surreal. Amy wore a blazer. Her hair was curled. She didn't look at me once. She claimed I was emotionally unstable, that I struggled with work-life balance, that I had no bond with the child. I sat there, listening to her lawyer spin our life into a cautionary tale. I wanted to shout. I changed his diapers. I held him through colic. I sang to him at 2 a.m. while you stared at your phone. But I stayed quiet. I let my lawyer speak. We reached a temporary agreement, joint custody, alternating weekends. Supervised visits for the first month. I saw Ben for 2 hours that first Saturday. He didn't recognize me. He cried when I held him. Amy watched from the corner of the room, arms crossed, saying nothing. When I handed him back, she sighed. He's used to Derek now. I wanted to ask about bugs. I couldn't find the words. Over the months, the custody schedule stabilized. I got to see Ben every other weekend. He started recognizing me. Started reaching for me. Then, one day in December, he called me Dada. I cried in the car afterward. Amy never brought bugs. I asked once. She shrugged. He's better off with us. But he's my cat. She raised an eyebrow. He sleeps on Derek's chest now. Seems like he chose. I filed a small claims suit for property theft. It went nowhere. The court said pets were marital property, and since we were never married, it was a civil matter. I posted flyers, offered money, tried to find a way to get him back. Nothing worked. I started sleeping with a stuffed cat on my bed. Not because it helped, but because it reminded me that I'd lost more than a relationship. I'd lost the quiet parts of my life. The ones that didn't cry or demand bottles. The ones that just purred softly beside me when the world got too loud. It's been 2 years now. Ben is 3. He knows who I am. He laughs when I chase him around the park. He tells me about preschool, about his stuffed dinosaur, about how Derek makes the best pancakes. I nod and smile and pretend I'm not bleeding inside. I haven't seen Amy in months. Everything goes through the court now. She still asks for more child support. Still complains that I don't understand what it takes to be a single mother. I don't argue. I just pay what I'm told. Sometimes I dream about bugs. In the dream, he's curled up on the windowsill, sun on his fur, tail twitching slowly. I reach out to pet him, and he looks up at me with those green eyes, and then I wake up, and the room is quiet, and empty, and cold. They say time heals, but time also dulls, smudges the edges of memory until you're not sure what was real and what you just wanted to be real. I keep Ben's drawings on my fridge, and a photo of bugs on my nightstand. Dating, well, it was easier than meeting someone in real life. I worked long hours, lived alone, and had a social circle that mostly consisted of co-workers and a few college friends scattered across the country. Tinder, for all its faults, offered a way to feel connected, even if only temporarily. His name was Noah. He messaged me first. So what's your go-to karaoke song? I didn't sing. Ever. But I appreciated the originality. We chatted for a few days. He said he was a freelance videographer, mostly wedding stuff but occasionally music videos. He was 32, lived downtown, and had a cat named Boomer who only liked women and rotisserie chicken. His photos were casual, one in a beanie with coffee, one holding a camera, one from behind a drum kit. He seemed normal, charming even. We agreed to meet for dinner at a Korean place halfway between our apartments. Neutral territory. Public. Busy enough to feel safe. I wore black jeans, a soft gray turtleneck, and ankle boots. Comfortable, low risk. I arrived first and grabbed a booth near the window. He was late. Not by much, maybe 10 minutes, but late enough for me to notice. When he walked in, I knew immediately that something was off. Not his appearance. He looked like his photos, more or less. Maybe a little taller, a little thinner. But his energy was different. Jittery. His eyes darted around the restaurant before settling on me. He slid into the booth and smiled. You're even prettier in person. I smiled politely. Thanks. We ordered food, bibimbap for me, bulgogi for him, and made small talk. At first, it was fine. He asked about my job, my dog, my favorite TV shows. But then he started talking about his ex. She was crazy. Like actually unstable. Thought she could read people's minds. Would track my phone. Show up at places I didn't tell her I was going. He laughed like it was funny. It wasn't. He mentioned her 3 more times during dinner, each reference more bitter than the last. She accused me of cheating because I liked someone's photo on Instagram. She used to leave notes on my car, like she owned me or something. You're not like that, right? I paused. Like what? Clingy. Controlling. I shook my head. I don't think so. He leaned in. Good. I hate that. After dinner, I told him I was tired and needed to get home. He offered to walk me to my car. I declined. He insisted. I declined again. He looked disappointed but not angry. Okay. I get it. Gotta build trust. I nodded and left quickly. In the parking lot, I checked over my shoulder twice before getting into my car. Just in case. That night, he messaged me. I had a good time. You've got a great smile. I replied with a simple, thanks. Take care. Then unmatched him. It wasn't a dramatic decision. I just didn't want to keep talking. Something in my gut had already made the call. 3 nights later, I saw his car. It was parked across the street from my building. Same make. Same model. Same dent on the rear bumper I'd noticed when he pulled into the restaurant lot. At first, I thought it had to be a coincidence. But then I saw him. In the driver's seat. Just sitting. Engine off. Lights off. Staring at my building. I turned off my own headlights and parked 2 blocks away. Walked home slowly, checking every shadow. By the time I reached my door, he was gone. I didn't sleep much that night. The next day, I convinced myself I'd imagined it, or that the car belonged to someone else. A similar model. A similar build. I was being paranoid. Right? But then it happened again. And again. Different nights. Same car. Same spot. Sometimes I saw him. Sometimes I didn't. But I always felt it. I stopped leaving the house after dark. I started taking different routes to work. I kept my curtains closed, even during the day. Then the packages started. Small. Unmarked. No return address. The first was a USB stick. I plugged it into an old laptop, one I didn't use anymore. Inside were 2 files. One was a video, footage of me walking my dog. From across the street. From behind a tree. The second was a .txt file. You looked peaceful. I reported it to the police. They took a statement, said they'd keep an eye out. But there wasn't much they could do. No direct threat. No name. No fingerprints. Just a suspicion that wouldn't hold up in court. They advised me to stay alert and document everything. I bought pepper spray, a door camera, a second deadbolt. I told my manager I needed to work remotely for a while. Then things escalated. One night, I heard something outside my window. A soft tapping. Repetitive. Measured. I looked through the peephole of my apartment door. No one. But when I opened the blinds of my bedroom, I saw him. Standing on the sidewalk. Hood up. Looking straight at my window. He didn't move. Just stood there, for what felt like hours, though it was probably only minutes. I called the police. Again. By the time they arrived, he was gone. They asked if I had proof. I showed them the video from the USB, the packages, the timestamps of the car sightings. They said it was enough to start a report, maybe even a temporary restraining order. But I didn't have his last name. Only a first name and a Tinder profile that no longer existed. They told me they'd try to trace the packages. Nothing came of it, so I left. I didn't pack much, just enough for a week. I stayed with a friend across town. Didn't tell anyone where. Kept my phone on airplane mode. Avoided all patterns. When I came back to check on my apartment, the front door had a scratch mark near the lock. Like someone had tried to pick it. I changed the locks. Installed a security camera above the door. Started sleeping with my keys under my pillow. Eventually, the sightings stopped. Weeks passed. Then months. No more cars. No more packages. No more tapping. Nothing. I wish I could say I felt relief. That I finally exhaled. But the truth is, it never really goes away. There's something about windows at night that always unsettled me. The way they reflect your own image back at you, but still leave just enough black space outside to imagine anything could be out there. As a kid, I used to close my blinds right before sunset. I never liked the idea of being visible without knowing who might be watching. By the time I was in college, I'd outgrown most of my childhood fears. I lived at home to save money, commuted to campus, and spent most nights studying, working, or scrolling through dating apps. My parents trusted me. I was responsible. Careful. I didn't party, didn't drink, didn't take risks. I matched with him on Tinder during winter break. His name was Ty, short for Tyler. He had dark hair, a confident grin, and a profile that was trying just a little too hard to seem cool. Skateboard in one picture, lifting weights in another, and a quote that read, "If you're not real, don't waste my time." I wouldn't normally swipe right on someone like that, but I was bored. Curious. He messaged me first. "You look like someone worth getting to know. Not original, but polite." We talked for a few days. I learned he was 24, worked at a roofing company, and lived in a neighboring town about 30 minutes away. He was flirtier than I liked, but not inappropriate. I told him I wasn't looking for anything serious. He said that was fine, he just wanted to hang out, maybe grab coffee. I didn't agree to meet. The more we talked, the more something felt off. He was too insistent. Too quick to ask personal questions. He wanted to know when I worked, what time I got home, whether my parents were the strict type. He asked for selfies constantly, even if I told him I was busy. If I took more than an hour to respond, he'd send follow-ups. "Hey, did I do something wrong? Are you mad at me?" I told him I was feeling overwhelmed and needed space. He said he understood. Then 2 days later, he made a new account and messaged me again. "You didn't have to ghost me. I thought you were different." That's when I blocked him. He tried again. New account. New name. Same photos. I blocked that one too. Then another. And another. Over the course of 2 weeks, he made 6 different profiles. Each time, he'd open with something like, "Hey, just wanted to talk." I'm not mad. The tone was always apologetic, but there was something beneath it. Something that felt like it was waiting to boil over. I finally reported his accounts to Tinder. Then deleted the app entirely. For a while, nothing happened. Weeks passed. Winter turned to spring. I focused on school. Got a part-time job at a bookstore. I stopped thinking about Ty. Until the messages started. They weren't from him, at least not directly. They were from random numbers. Always unlisted. Always brief. "Still working late? You look nice today. Why'd you block me?" I changed my number. It didn't stop. One afternoon, I came home and found a paper flower taped to the mailbox. It was folded from a page of a book. The words were highlighted in pink. She didn't know he was still watching. I didn't tell my parents right away. I didn't want to scare them. My dad had a bad heart, and my mom was already the anxious type. I convinced myself it was a coincidence. A prank. Nothing serious. But I started noticing things. Footprints outside the house. A cigarette but near my window. No one in my family smokes. My bedroom curtain slightly moved when I knew I hadn't touched it. I finally told my dad. He didn't say much. Just nodded, grabbed a flashlight, and did a full sweep of the yard that night. He told me to keep my blinds closed and never come home after dark alone. He started parking his truck closer to the front door. I think he was trying not to alarm me, but I could tell he was worried. Then came the night I saw him. It was late, maybe 1 a.m. I'd stayed up finishing a paper and went to the kitchen for water. The backyard was pitch black. No moon, no lights. I poured a glass, turned to go back to my room, and froze. There was someone standing just beyond the patio. Still. Silent. Facing the house. I couldn't see his face, only the outline. But then he moved slightly into the light. And I saw the mask. It was a cheap white plastic one. No expression. Just 2 dark eye holes. I dropped the glass. It shattered. My dad was down the stairs in seconds. "What happened?" I could barely speak. Just pointed to the window. He looked out. The figure was still there. Then my dad did something I'll never forget. He ran outside. No shoes. No flashlight. Just raw instinct. I heard him shout. A scuffle. Then a thud. My mom called the police while I stood frozen by the sink, heart pounding, hands shaking. When the officers arrived, they found my dad sitting on top of the guy, knee pressed into his back, one hand gripping his wrist. The mask had come off. It was Ty. No question. He was older than I remembered. His hair longer. His eyes wild. He said nothing. The police handcuffed him, read him his rights, and took him into custody. They found a knife in his backpack, and a folder full of printed photos, some of me, some of my house, some of my workplace. He'd been watching for months. We filed for a restraining order. He was charged with stalking, trespassing, and possession of a weapon with intent to intimidate. He pled not guilty. His lawyer claimed it was all a misunderstanding, that he was just trying to reconnect. But the evidence said otherwise. I testified. He was denied bail and eventually sentenced to a year in jail, followed by probation. It's been 2 years. I still keep my blinds closed before sunset. I still check the backyard every night. Sometimes I wake up thinking I see the mask outside my window. Just a flash, a pale oval in the dark. But it's never there. Not yet. People talk a lot about red flags, but they don't always show up immediately. I'm not someone who's easily rattled. I've lived alone for 4 years, worked late shifts, walked home in the dark, and dealt with my share of overconfident strangers. I know how to carry my keys between my fingers. I know how to keep my earbuds out in one ear. I know how to say no in a voice that's firm but not angry, friendly but final. So when I first saw him at the gym, I didn't think anything of it. He was just another guy lifting in the free weight section, tall, broad-shouldered, a little too into his own reflection. He wore a backward cap and brought his own chalk for deadlifts. The type you'd expect to see posting clips of his squats on Instagram with hashtags like #beastmode or #grindneverstops. He didn't approach me that first day. Just nodded once when we made eye contact near the mirror wall. I nodded back and went back to my workout. I'd been going to that gym for almost a year. It was close to work, open late, and had good lighting. The staff knew me by name, and I had a routine. Weights on Mondays and Thursdays, cardio on Wednesdays, yoga on weekends. I wore the same old leggings and oversized t-shirts, kept my hair up in a bun, and never stayed longer than 90 minutes. The second time I saw him, he smiled. I smiled back briefly and kept moving. The third time, he approached me. "Hey, you're here a lot." I paused, pulling out one earbud. "Yeah, I guess. What's your split?" I hesitated. Push/pull. "Nice," he said. "I've seen you deadlift. You've got good form." "Thanks," I said, already turning away. He extended a hand. "I'm Ryan." I shook it. "Lena." After that, he made a point of saying hi every time I came in. Not in a creepy way, at first. Just a wave, a smile, sometimes a comment about the music playing or how busy it was. He started working out near me more often, switching benches when I moved, timing his sets to match mine. I noticed, but I didn't say anything. It might have been coincidence. One night, after I finished my last set, he caught me near the water fountain. "You heading out?" "Yeah, early shift tomorrow. You want to grab a smoothie or something?" I smiled politely. "Thanks, but I've got to get home." He nodded. "Cool. Another time." I thought that would be the end of it. It wasn't. The next week, he asked again. Then again. Each time I said no. Politely. Clearly. "I'm not looking to date right now. I just come here to work out. It's nothing personal. I just keep to myself here." He always smiled. Always said, "No worries." But then he'd be back the next day, asking how my shift went, what I was training that night, if I'd changed my mind. I started changing my schedule. Going earlier. Skipping days. Switching machines randomly, so I couldn't be followed easily. He still found me. One night, I left the gym just after 9 p.m. It was dark, but the lot was well lit. As I approached my car, I heard footsteps behind me. I turned. It was him. "Hey," he said casually. "Just heading out too?" I nodded, unlocking my door. "You sure you don't want to grab something? I know a 24-hour diner." "I'm good, thanks." He leaned slightly on the passenger side of my car. "You don't have to be so cold. I'm just trying to be nice." "I appreciate it, but I've said no." He paused. His smile twitched. "Okay," he said. "Didn't mean to make you uncomfortable." He stepped back. I got in and locked the doors. After that, I started parking closer to the entrance. I told the front desk manager, a woman named Deirdre, what had been happening. She frowned and said she'd keep an eye out. That if I ever felt unsafe, I should come to the front immediately. The next week, Ryan wasn't there. I exhaled. Then he came back. And this time, he didn't say anything. He just stared. From across the gym. From behind machines. From the stretching area near the mats. His eyes would follow me from the moment I walked in to the moment I left. He stopped smiling. Stopped waving. One night, he stood near the exit while I walked to my car. Didn't follow. Just stood. Watching. I told Deirdre again. She pulled up the security footage and said she'd report it to the manager. The next day, someone had scratched the passenger side of my car. A long, deliberate line. I stopped going to the gym. I canceled my membership. Started working out at home. I bought resistance bands, a yoga mat, a set of dumbbells. 3 nights later, I saw a car idling down the street from my apartment. Same make. Same color as Ryan's. It stayed there for 10 minutes. Then drove off. I filed a report with the police. They said without a direct confrontation or threat, there wasn't much they could do. I installed a camera above my front door. I changed my route to work. I blocked every unfamiliar number that called me. For weeks, nothing happened. Then one evening, I came home and found a note slipped under my door. It said, "Why'd you stop saying hi?" I moved, left the city, took a transfer with work, got a new number, new email, new gym, one with security at the door and tinted windows. Let me just start by saying, I don't go on dates with guys who own guns. That's not a political thing, it's a personal boundary. If a guy mentions his Glock in the first 5 minutes, I'm out. I've had enough weird experiences with guys who think, I protect what's mine is romantic. It's not. It's just unsettling. So naturally, I found myself on a date with a man who owned a gun. Let me explain. His name was Jordan. We met on Bumble. His profile was minimal in that way that makes you think he's either extremely cool or hiding something. One photo was him hiking, one was him holding a puppy, and one was him standing on a beach with sunglasses and a baseball cap, face barely visible. His bio: looking for someone who laughs at my bad jokes. Bonus points if you like dogs and don't mind the outdoors. Harmless, right? He opened with, "Do you prefer bowling alleys or bonfires?" I replied, "Depends. Are we talking cozy bonfire or the kind where people bring acoustic guitars and sing off-key?" He said, "Cozy. No guitars. Just mores." We talked for a few days. He was chill. No pressure. No creepy compliments. He asked about my dog, my job, my favorite late-night snack. He told me he worked in IT, had a rescue mutt named Milo, and really liked night drives because they made the world feel quieter. I liked that. He suggested we meet up at a park near the bowling center, just outside town. It had a trail loop, a duck pond, and picnic benches. He said it would be casual, just a walk and maybe some fries afterward. I agreed. I wore jeans, a hoodie, and sneakers. Practical. Comfortable. Nonchalant. When I pulled into the lot, he was already there, leaning against his car with a takeaway tray of iced coffees. He held one up like it was a peace offering. "For the lady," he said. I laughed. "You don't know how I take it. You look like a vanilla cold brew kind of girl." I raised an eyebrow. "Do I?" He handed me the cup. "Took a guess. If I'm wrong, there's a backup." He had a second tray in his car. 2 more drinks. I couldn't decide if that was thoughtful or strange. We walked the trail, sipping coffee. He told me about growing up with 4 younger siblings. I told him about my failed attempt to foster a senior cat who hated everyone, including me. We laughed. It was easy. We ended up sitting on a bench near the pond. The sun had just dipped behind the trees. Lamps were flickering on, casting long shadows across the grass. It was peaceful in that suburban, slightly eerie way. The kind of quiet that makes you notice every twig snap. That's when I saw him. At first, I thought it was some dumb teenager playing a prank. A guy in a clown mask, standing at the edge of the trees. Just standing. Watching us. I pointed. "Okay, that's not normal." Jordan followed my gaze. His entire body stiffened. The clown didn't move. Just stood there, holding something long in his hand. I squinted. At first, I thought it was a stick. Then I saw the glint. It was a machete. Jordan stood up slowly. "Stay behind me." I blinked. "What?" "Get behind me," he said again, more urgent this time. I did. The clown started walking toward us. Not fast. Just steady, like he had all the time in the world. Each step deliberate. He said nothing. The mask was expressionless, white face paint, red lips, hollow eyes. Jordan reached into his jacket and pulled something out. It was a gun. I froze. "Is that real?" I whispered. "Yes," he said. "Licensed." The clown kept walking. "Stop right there," Jordan shouted. No reaction. He raised the gun and fired once, into the air. The sound cracked like a firework. Birds exploded from the trees. Somewhere behind us, a car alarm went off. The clown stopped, then turned and ran. Full sprint, back into the woods, vanishing between the trees. Jordan lowered the gun, breathing hard. I was shaking. "Are you okay?" he asked. I nodded. "That was a gun." "Yes. You had a gun." "I wasn't going to let anything happen to you." I didn't know what to say. He called the police. Reported the incident. Gave a description. They said they'd send a patrol car to the area, but that it was probably a prank. "A prank with a machete?" I said. "Hard to prove," the dispatcher said, according to Jordan. "Unless someone's injured." We waited 15 minutes. No one showed up. No clown. No cops. Just the two of us standing at the edge of the trail, adrenaline draining, trying to process what had just happened. He offered to walk me to my car. I hesitated. "I won't touch you," he said. "Promise." I nodded. As we reached the lot, I looked back toward the woods. Nothing but shadows and rustling leaves. We stood by my car in silence. Then I said, "You could have told me you carried." He looked down. "I don't usually bring it on dates. But something felt off tonight." I studied his face. "What do you mean?" "I don't know," he said. "I almost canceled. I had this weird dream last night. Woke up sweating. Figured I was just being paranoid. But when I saw that guy, I knew." I got in my car and locked the door. He stood back as I started the engine. "I'm sorry," he said. "I just wanted you to feel safe." I nodded once, then drove away. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing the mask. The way it stared. The slow walk. The machete. I called the police the next day to follow up. They said they'd patrolled the area and found nothing. No footprints. No sign of a suspect. Likely a local prankster. I didn't find it funny. I unmatched Jordan the next day. Not because he did anything wrong, but because I realized something. It didn't matter how prepared you were, how polite, how cautious, how clever. I used to think you could outrun someone if you were fast enough. If you packed light, left early, changed your number, deleted your social media, and didn't look back. I believed that distance meant safety, that a state line could act like some invisible shield. I was wrong. His name was Caleb, and for a long time, I thought he was the love of my life. We met in college, nothing special, just two people who happened to be at the same orientation dinner. He was a junior, I was a freshman. He had this magnetic way about him, quiet, but not shy. He made you feel like everything you said was interesting, like you were the only voice in a crowded room. We started dating a few weeks later. At first, it felt like a dream. He was attentive, charming, and always knew what to say when I needed to hear it. When I got homesick, he'd bring me late-night milkshakes and sit on the dorm steps until I felt better. When my dad got sick, he held me while I cried, telling me I didn't have to go through it alone. Everyone loved him. My roommates, my professors, even my mom, who was notoriously suspicious of any guy I brought home, said, "He seems like a good one." He wasn't. It started small. He'd get moody when I went out with friends. Not angry, just distant. Passive. Quiet for hours afterward. Then he started joking about the clothes I wore. "You don't need to dress like that. Who are you trying to impress? You know other guys are watching you, right?" When I pushed back, he'd laugh and say, "Relax. I'm just messing with you." But the comments kept coming. He didn't like my best friend, said she was trouble. He didn't like when I didn't answer texts right away. He didn't like when I talked to other guys, even if they were classmates or baristas or just someone asking for directions. I started changing without realizing it. I stopped wearing certain outfits. I stopped going out. I deleted apps, ignored messages, and told myself I was just being considerate. That's what he wanted. Consideration. We dated for nearly 3 years. The breakup was messy but not dramatic. I just couldn't do it anymore. I told him I needed space, that I wasn't happy, and that we'd grown apart. He didn't scream. He didn't cry. He just stared at me for a long time and said, "If you go, you'll regret it." I left anyway. I moved to a different city 3 hours away, got a new job at a small nonprofit, and rented a 1-bedroom apartment above a bakery. It was the first time I'd lived alone. I bought plants. I painted the walls a pale green. I went to spin classes and started reading again. I even went on a few dates, nothing serious, just enough to feel like myself. Then one morning, I got a text from an unknown number. "Green looks good on you." I froze. I'd worn my new green jacket that day. The one I'd ordered as a kind of post-breakup rebellion. Too bright, too bold, too unlike the girl I'd been. I looked around, heart pounding. I was standing in line at the coffee shop near my office. People everywhere. No one looking at me. I deleted the message and told myself it was spam. A week later, I saw him. Or maybe I didn't. Maybe it was someone who just looked like him. Same build, same walk, same gray hoodie. He was across the street, looking down at his phone. I ducked into a bookstore and waited 15 minutes before coming out again. No one was there. I told myself I was being paranoid. Then came the emails. Different addresses. No subject lines. Just quotes. Lyrics. Inside jokes from college. Lines from movies we used to watch. This is the part where you say you're sorry. You always said you hated the ending. I know you miss me. I blocked every address. I changed mine. I started locking every window, every door, even during the day. I told my friends. They said I should get a restraining order. But I didn't have proof. No threats. Just vibes, unsettling, persistent, unprovable vibes. Then one evening, I came home from work and found a box on my doorstep. No label. No postage. Just a plain brown box with my name written in red ink. Inside was a photo of us from college. One of those photo booth strips. We were both laughing, eyes closed, arms tangled. On the back, someone had written, "Still the best night." I moved again. This time, I didn't tell anyone where. Not even my mom. I found a sublet in a different state, packed only what I could fit in my car, and left in the middle of the night. I changed my number. Deleted every account. I even dyed my hair and started going by my middle name at work. For a while it worked. I felt anonymous. Invisible. Safe. Then 3 months later, I saw the listing. It was a rental across the street from my building. A charming unit with lots of natural light. The name on the application? Caleb M. Just an initial. Just enough. I went to the leasing office and asked about it. They couldn't give me details. Privacy laws. But the woman behind the desk gave me a look, a small, knowing look, and said, "You might want to be cautious." That night, I packed again. I didn't wait to see if he moved in. I didn't give notice. I just drove. I've done that 4 times now. For cities. For jobs. For different versions of myself. Each time, I get a little quieter. A little more careful. I use cash when I can. I keep my phone off unless I need it. I don't post. I don't share. I don't linger. It's been a year since the last move. I live in a small town now. Population under 9,000. I rent a guest house behind an older couple's property. They don't ask questions. I work remotely, order groceries online, and go for walks at dawn when no one's around. Sometimes I still get that feeling, like someone's watching. Like a breath on the back of my neck. I remind myself it's just fear. Old trauma echoing through new walls. But then I remember the box. The photo. The way he said, "If you go, you'll regret it." And I know better. Some people don't let go. They don't accept silence. They follow. They wait. They move in across the street and pretend it's a coincidence. They learn your new name, your new job, your new favorite coffee shop. I'd been on dating apps long enough to know the difference between a bad date and a dangerous one. I'd had my share of awkward conversations, mismatched expectations, and overzealous flirts. But nothing had ever truly frightened me. That night changed everything. His name was Ethan. We matched on Hinge. He had the kind of face you'd expect to see in a finance commercial, clean-cut, square-jawed, always in a button-down. His profile said he was a data analyst by day, amateur chef by night. He loved hiking with his golden retriever, had a passport full of stamps, and claimed he made the best chicken tikka masala in 3 states. We started talking on a Tuesday. The conversation flowed easily. He was funny, attentive, and quick to respond without being overeager. He asked questions about my job, my hobbies, even my favorite childhood movie. That stood out. Most guys barely made it past, "What do you do?" before steering the conversation somewhere suggestive. By Friday, he asked if I wanted to meet in person. He suggested a restaurant in the downtown district, a trendy place I'd been to once before with friends. Mid-range prices, good lighting, always busy enough to feel safe, but not so loud that you had to shout across the table. I agreed. He made the reservation for 7:30. I arrived 5 minutes early and got a table near the back, tucked between a large window and a booth of 4 women celebrating someone's birthday. I texted him to let him know I was there. He replied, "Perfect. Just parked. Be in 2." He walked in right on time. Tall, well-dressed, exactly like his photos. His hair was neatly styled, and he carried himself with a confident ease that made me feel like I was already behind in the conversation. But his smile was warm, and he greeted me with a quick hug that didn't linger. "So nice to finally meet you," he said. We sat down, ordered drinks. He got a whiskey neat. I got a lemon spritzer. They had a version with vodka, but I chose the non-alcoholic one. I wanted to stay clear-headed. It was a first date, after all. The first 20 minutes were pleasant. He talked about his job, something about analytics for a logistics company. He made it sound more interesting than it probably was. I told him about working in nonprofit communications, and he seemed genuinely intrigued. He asked thoughtful questions, and even remembered that I'd mentioned my dog's name in a previous message. The drinks arrived. Mine came in a tall glass with a lemon wedge on the rim. His was short, dark amber, a single cube of ice. He raised his glass. To new connections. I smiled and clinked mine against his. As I was lifting my glass for a sip, I noticed him glance down at the table, then quickly back up. It was subtle, but something about it made me pause. The moment passed, though, and I took a small sip. The conversation continued, but something started to shift. Ethan leaned in more. His voice got lower. Less casual, more deliberate. "You've got really captivating eyes," he said. "I noticed that in your photos, but they're even better in person." "Thank you," I said, offering a polite smile. He reached out and grazed my wrist with his fingers. "You're easy to talk to." I nodded, but the gesture caught me off guard. I excused myself to use the restroom, more out of instinct than necessity. I needed a moment to breathe, to reset. Something about his energy was starting to feel different, like he'd flipped a switch when he thought I wouldn't notice. When I returned, my drink had been moved. Just slightly. It was closer to him than where I'd left it. He smiled as I sat down. "You were gone a while. Everything okay?" "Yeah," I said. "Just freshening up." I reached for my drink, but something in me hesitated. That's when I saw her. A woman from the booth next to us, the birthday group, stood up and walked over. She looked to be in her late 30s, with dark red lipstick and a confidence you could feel before she spoke. "Hi," she said to me. "Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to say I love your dress. Where did you get it?" I blinked. "Oh, thank you. I think it was from a boutique downtown." She smiled warmly, then leaned in just enough that only I could hear her. "You need to come with me. Right now. Don't drink anything." I stared at her. She looked me straight in the eye. "He put something in your drink when you went to the bathroom." I saw him. The blood drained from my face. I looked at Ethan. He was watching us calmly, like he was deciding how to react. "I just need to borrow her for a second," the woman said, grabbing my arm gently but firmly. She guided me away from the table before I could speak. We walked straight to the front of the restaurant. "Are you okay?" she asked. I think so," I stammered. "Are you sure?" "I watched him," she said. "He took a small vial out of his pocket and poured it into your drink." I wasn't the only one who saw it. My friend called the manager. The manager was already on the phone with the police. Within minutes, 2 officers arrived. They spoke to the woman who'd helped me, then to the staff, and eventually escorted Ethan out of the restaurant. I gave a statement. So did the woman. Her name was Carla. The officers found a small glass vial in Ethan's pocket, empty. They took the drink for testing. Later, I learned it tested positive for benzodiazepines, sedatives. Ethan was arrested for attempted drugging with intent to commit a felony. He had no prior record. No red flags. His LinkedIn was clean. His dating profile was polished. He had dozens of mutual friends with people I knew from college. He didn't fit the image most people have in their heads when they think of predators. But that's the thing about predators. They're rarely obvious. They smile. They compliment. They ask about your job. They hold the door open. And sometimes they bring a vial in their pocket. I never saw Ethan again. He was released on bail. I was told he'll face trial later this year. I still think about Carla. If she hadn't been watching. If she hadn't spoken up. If I'd taken one more sip. I thanked her a dozen times that night, and I've thanked her 100 more in my head since. Now, whenever I go out, I watch. I watch who's watching others. I watch where drinks sit. We were 16 when it started. That strange age where you think you know love because it hurts when they don't text back. I didn't know what toxic meant back then. If you'd asked me, I would have said we were just passionate. That's the word she used. Her name was Kayla. She was the kind of girl who knew how to take up space. Loud laugh, heavy eyeliner, always at the center of the hallway crowd. I was quieter, on the football team, but not the star. I kept to myself mostly. We were in English together, and one day she passed me a note in the middle of class. "You always look like you're thinking about something important." That's how it began. The relationship went from 0 to 100 in a matter of days. We texted nonstop. She'd call me at 2 a.m. just to ask what I thought happened after death. She said she'd never connected with anyone like this before. Said I made her feel safe and dangerous at the same time. It felt intense. Addictive. She wanted to be with me constantly, before school, after school weekends. At first, I thought it was love. Then I started noticing how she'd get angry if I didn't reply fast enough. How she'd accuse me of flirting with other girls if I so much as laughed at a joke in class. She once called me crying because I liked a photo on Instagram from a girl I barely knew. I started changing small things. I stopped hanging out with my guy friends. I stopped going to parties unless she was with me. I even switched to a different lunch period to match hers. Every time I tried to pull back, she'd either cry or threaten to leave. I didn't want to lose her. When we fought, the highs afterward were almost euphoric. She'd say things like, "I only get mad because I care so much," or "No one will ever love you the way I do." And I believed her. We dated through junior and most of senior year. Then, just weeks before prom, she ended it. Over text. No warning. Just, "You're not the person I thought you were. I need someone stronger." I was wrecked. I didn't eat for days. I skipped practice. I even wrote her a long letter I never sent. I thought I'd done something unforgivable. She started dating someone else almost immediately. I tried to move on. College helped. I left our hometown, got into a decent school out of state, made new friends. I didn't really date again until my junior year of college, and even then, I kept people at a distance. I told myself I was just being cautious. But the truth is, I was still carrying all that weight from before. I didn't hear from Kayla for years. Then, out of nowhere, she sent me a friend request on Facebook. I stared at it for a long time before clicking accept. Curiosity, maybe. Or some stupid part of me, still hoping for closure. A few days later, she messaged me. "Hey stranger. Saw your name and couldn't resist. Hope life's been good to you." We chatted a little. She said she was working at a law office back home. Said she still thought about high school sometimes, how intense we were, how real it felt. I kept the conversation light. I wasn't interested in stirring anything up. Then she dropped the bomb. "I have to confess something. I cheated on you. More than once." She said it like it was nothing. Like we were two old friends laughing about the past. I didn't reply right away. When I finally did, I just said, "Why are you telling me this now?" She answered, "I've grown. I'm not that person anymore. I figured you should know. For your own healing." I closed the chat. I didn't respond again. It might have ended there. But fate apparently had more to say. 5 months later, I came home for the holidays. Caught up with some old friends, including my best friend from high school, Ben. We hadn't talked much in college, but we'd always been close growing up. He invited me and a few others over for drinks. His girlfriend was there. Her name was Jess. I didn't recognize her at first. But when she turned and smiled at me, I felt the floor tilt. It was Kayla. Different hair, different clothes, but the same eyes. I stood there frozen. Ben came over, arm around her shoulder, grinning. "Hey man, this is Jess. We've been dating almost 2 years now." She didn't look at me. Not once that night. I didn't say anything to Ben. What could I say? I left early and never saw either of them again. I moved back in with my parents for a while after graduation, just to save money. But also because I needed time to unpack everything. That relationship shaped me in ways I didn't understand until much later. It made me distrustful. Made me think love had to be dramatic to be real. It took therapy, and a lot of time, for me to realize how warped my sense of connection had become. I'm better now. Healthier. Wiser. But if I could go back and talk to my 16-year-old self, I'd tell him this. Love shouldn't make you feel small. It shouldn't make you erase your friends, your personality, your peace. It shouldn't come with threats or games or ultimatums. And just because someone wants you doesn't mean they know how to care for you. His name was Kyle. We matched on Snapchat's dating section, something I usually avoided. But that night I was bored scrolling, half watching a show in the background. His Bitmoji looked normal enough, baseball cap, hoodie, tired eyes. His profile didn't say much, just painter, music addict, looking for someone who doesn't flake. I should have taken that last part as a sign. We snapped a few times. He was always quick to open messages. He used a lot of filters, dog ears, sunglasses, voice changers. It annoyed me, but I wrote it off as harmless. He asked for selfies, and I sent a few, nothing risky. He kept complimenting me, but in a way that felt off. "You look soft. Like I could pick you up. You'd be easy to fold into my arms. I bet you smell like vanilla or coconut." It wasn't vulgar, but it made my skin crawl a little. When I didn't respond fast enough, he'd send strings of messages. "You there? Don't ignore me." I told him I wasn't comfortable with how pushy he was. That I didn't owe him instant replies. That I wasn't interested anymore. I blocked him. That should have been it. It wasn't. The next day, I got a friend request on another platform, from a random account with no profile picture. I declined it. That night, I got a snap from a new username. F0LDUN to me. Blocked. Then another. Then another. Each time, a new variation on his name. All blocked. I started locking my Snapchat settings. Made my location private. Told my close friends to keep an eye out for anything weird. I changed my profile photo and username. Then I forgot about him. For a while. 2 weeks later, I went to my best friend Jess's house for a sleepover. We'd done this since high school, movies, snacks, talking until 2 a.m. Her parents were out of town, and it was just the two of us, curled up in her basement with popcorn and face masks. Around midnight, I went upstairs to get more soda. That's when I saw it. A shadow outside the glass door. At first, I thought it was a tree. Then it moved. I froze. There was a man standing on the patio, wearing a hoodie, and a mask, plain white, like a blank Halloween prop. His hands were pressed to the glass. Watching. I whispered for Jess. She came up, saw him, and gasped. We turned off the lights. Crawled away from the door. Jess grabbed her dad's old baseball bat from the closet. I called 911. While we waited, we peeked again. He was still there, holding something up to the window. A phone. With Snapchat open. My profile photo. My username. A message typed out on the screen. Shouldn't have blocked me. Jess's dad got home 10 minutes later. He'd come back early from a trip. When he saw the guy on the patio, he stormed out the front door, circled around, and tackled him. Held him down until the cops arrived. It was Kyle. He had 3 phones. A knife. A set of printed photos, screenshots from my stories, my selfies, my Bitmoji. He'd found Jess's address through a tagged location from a post I'd made weeks earlier. He never said why he wore the mask. Maybe he thought it made him unrecognizable. Maybe he thought it made him special. He was arrested that night for trespassing, stalking, and unlawful surveillance. His Snapchat accounts were reported. Deleted. His devices were seized. I gave a statement. Got a protection order. But for weeks after, I couldn't sleep. I kept staring at my phone, wondering how many times I'd shared too much. A photo of a smoothie with a cafe tag. A sunset shot from my bedroom window. The background of a mirror selfie showing my mailbox. He'd pieced it all together. One snap at a time. I used to think dating someone who lived in your building was a great idea. Built-in convenience, no commute, impromptu dinners, and the comfort of knowing they're just a stairwell away. I told myself, this is what adulthood is supposed to feel like. Efficient, cozy, and maybe even a little romantic. I met Mike during my second month living in the building. He lived in 3B, just 1 floor up from my place in 2A. We bumped into each other at the mailboxes. He made a joke about how the elevator always smelled like burnt popcorn. I laughed, and for some reason that moment stuck. He was charming in a laid-back, I do my own oil changes kind of way. Tall, scruffy, always in cargo shorts and band t-shirts. He worked in construction, mostly freelance contracts, and said he liked the flexibility. He had a raspy voice, like he'd smoked since puberty, and a surprisingly gentle laugh. We started with small talk, then coffee in the lobby, then beers on his balcony. The first time he kissed me, it was after helping me carry up a box of books I'd been avoiding unpacking. He leaned against my doorway and said, "You know, I've been waiting for an excuse to come inside." I laughed and let him in. From there, things moved quickly. The first few weeks of dating Mike felt like the honeymoon phase on steroids. We saw each other constantly, because how could we not? I'd hear his footsteps in the hallway and feel a little thrill, like I was in a rom-com. He'd drop by with snacks, or I'd bring over wine. We stayed up late talking, watching bad sci-fi movies, or just sitting on the floor with our backs against the couch. He told me about growing up in a small town in upstate New York. About his mom, who had passed from cancer 2 years ago. About his dad, who he hadn't spoken to in over a decade. About how he sometimes felt like the world was moving too fast, and he just needed quiet. I listened. I liked that he was open. Sensitive, even. But I also noticed little things I didn't quite know how to process. Like how he always kept the blinds drawn, even during the day. Or how he flinched when the microwave beeped too loud. Or how once, when a car alarm went off outside, he stood completely still for almost 2 full minutes, staring at the ceiling. I chalked it up to stress. The world is loud. He said he was recovering from a rough patch. Bad roommates, bad jobs, bad meds. I didn't pry. I wanted to believe the best. So I did. The first real red flag came one night around 2:45 a.m. I woke up to the sound of thudding music, some kind of heavy industrial metal shaking the walls. I assumed it was a party, maybe some new tenant being inconsiderate. I got up, walked into the hallway, and realized it was coming from Mike's unit. I knocked. No answer. I knocked louder. Still nothing. The door was unlocked. I pushed it open and found him sitting cross-legged on the living room floor, shirtless, eyes closed, speakers blaring. "Mike!" I shouted. He didn't respond, just kept rocking slightly back and forth. I touched his shoulder. He jolted, eyes wide, like he didn't recognize me. "What are you doing?" I asked. He blinked. "They're trying to listen," he said. "But the music drowns them out." I stared at him. "Who's trying to listen?" "The building," he whispered. "The walls. They have ears." I slowly turned off the speaker. He stood up and hugged me like I'd just brought him back to earth. "Thanks," he mumbled. "I just needed the static to stop." I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, he was back to normal. Or pretending to be. He made pancakes. Kissed my forehead. Called it a weird dream. I asked if he was okay. He said he was. That he had a lot on his mind. That sometimes the noise in his head got too loud, and he needed a way to fight it. I told him to talk to someone. A doctor. A therapist. He said he didn't trust them. "They just want to label you," he said. "Put you in a box and keep you there." I told him I was worried. He said, "Don't be. You calm me down. You're the only one who sees me." I believed him. Until the next time. It was a Tuesday when things truly turned. I was in his apartment, folding laundry on his bed, when he walked out of the bathroom holding a towel, dripping wet, and started shouting at the ceiling. "Shut up. Shut the hell up." I froze. He paced the room, yelling at the air. "Don't act like I don't know what this is. I've read the files. I know what you're doing." Then he looked at me. "You told them, didn't you?" I blinked. "What are you talking about?" "You told the landlord. Or the super. Or whoever. I saw the maintenance van outside. They're in the walls." "Mike!" He stepped closer. "You think I don't see it? The way you're always looking at the vents. The way you keep your phone face down." I backed away. "I haven't told anyone anything," I said. He stared at me for a long time. Then smiled. "Okay," he said softly. "Okay." I left 15 minutes later and cried in my car. After that, I started pulling away. I stopped answering his texts right away. I made excuses. Said I was busy. That I had family visiting. He didn't take it well. He started knocking on my door late at night. Sometimes 2-3 times in a row. He left me notes. "I know something's changed. You promised you wouldn't be like the others. You're not safe alone." One morning, I found a dead bird on my doorstep. I don't know if it was him, but I moved it with gloves and didn't ask. The night I decided to leave for good, he was screaming. Not words. Just raw, guttural sound. I called the building manager. He said, "We've had complaints before." I asked, "Why hasn't anything been done?" He sighed. "Because he pays rent on time. Because he doesn't technically violate the lease. Because no one wants to deal with it." I packed a bag. Stayed with a friend. The next day, I filed a police report. They said unless he threatened me directly, there wasn't much they could do. I ended my lease early. Paid the penalty. Didn't look back. That was a year ago. I still live in the same city, but I double-check leases now. Research tenants. Ask more questions. Sometimes I still hear music at 3 a.m. But it's in my head, not the walls. Dating your neighbor might seem convenient. But when things go wrong, you can't just walk away. Sometimes you have to run, and hope the walls forget your name. I met her on Snapchat, which should have been the first red flag. It wasn't even through a friend or a group. She added me randomly, and I assumed she got my handle from someone I knew. That happens sometimes in small circles, especially when you live in a college town where everyone knows everyone, or at least pretends to. Her name was KD. Blonde, pretty sharp jawline. Her snaps were mostly selfies, filters, tongue out, peace signs. A little bit of attitude in every one. She messaged me first. "You're cute. What's your story?" I didn't think much of it. I'd just gotten out of a weird situationship, and I wasn't looking for anything serious. So I replied. We traded snaps for a few days. Basic stuff, what music we liked, what we were doing that night, inside jokes that made no sense to anyone else. KD was bold. Confident. She asked if I had roommates, what kind of bed I had, if I liked girls who take charge. I thought it was just flirting, half serious, half performance. I didn't mind. I figured we were on the same page. Just chatting, maybe hang out once, no pressure. One night she sent a snap of her in a hoodie, no makeup, laying on a pillow. Bored. You up? It was 11:30 p.m. I said, yeah, just watching YouTube. She replied, should I come over? I paused. Thought about it. I'd never met her in person. But she sounded normal. Her Bitmoji looked like her. Her voice memos were casual. I figured if anything felt off, I'd just keep it chill. Watch a movie. Nothing had to happen. Sure, I replied. I'm at my street. It's the first house with the blue truck in the driveway. She said she'd be over in 20 minutes. I straightened up a bit, turned on the porch light, made sure my roommates were asleep. I wasn't nervous. More curious than anything. KD showed up just after midnight. She was wearing leggings, a cropped hoodie, and white sneakers. She looked younger than I expected, maybe 19 or 20. She smelled like vanilla and something sharp underneath it, like citrus or alcohol. She didn't say much when she walked in, just looked around, smiled, and said, "So this is your place?" I nodded. "Yeah, just me and 2 roommates. They're knocked out." We sat on the couch. I put on a movie. She curled up next to me, head on my shoulder. It was quiet, comfortable even, until she started kissing me. I kissed her back, but gently. I didn't want to move too fast. I wasn't sure yet if I was into it. Something about her energy felt off, not bad, just off, like she was trying too hard to make something happen. She pulled back and looked at me. "You're not like other guys," she said. I smiled. Is that a compliment? Most would have already tried to hook up. I shrugged. I'm not most guys. She leaned in again, more aggressively this time. I let it happen for a second, then pulled back. "Hey," I said. "Let's slow down a little." Her face changed. Just a flicker. Not anger, more like confusion. "You don't want me?" she asked. "It's not that," I said. "I just like to take things at my own pace." "That cool?" She didn't answer right away. Then she stood up. "I should go," she said. I offered to walk her out. She didn't reply. Just grabbed her phone, slipped on her shoes, and left. I sent her a message the next morning. "Hey, hope you got home safe." No response. I figured that was it. I didn't expect anything more. I was wrong. 3 days later, I started getting weird snaps. Random pictures of my street taken from inside a car. One of my blue truck. Another of my mailbox. No caption. No context. I screenshotted the snaps. Then I messaged her. "Katie? Is this you?" She opened the message. Didn't reply. That night, someone knocked on my window. Not the door. The window to my bedroom. I jumped out of bed, pulled back the curtain. Nothing. The next morning, I found a footprint in the flower bed. A small one. About her size. I told myself it could have been a prank. Maybe my roommate's messing with me. I didn't bring it up. But the snaps kept coming. One showed the back of my house. Another from across the street, clearly zoomed in on my bedroom window. Then the messages started. "Why won't you talk to me? You said I was different. I know you're awake. I can see the light." I blocked her. That night, I heard laughter outside. 2 or 3 voices. I looked through the blinds, saw a car parked just beyond the streetlight, engine running. I couldn't make out the faces, but I recognized the silhouette in the passenger seat. KD. I called the non-emergency police line. Told them someone was loitering near my property. They sent a patrol car, but by the time it arrived, the car was gone. I didn't sleep. The next day, I found a note taped to my driver's side mirror. It said, "You don't get to ghost me." I showed it to the police. They told me to document everything. So I did. Every snap. Every note. Every time I heard a car idling outside at 2 a.m. Then a week later, she tried to get inside. It was 1:30 in the morning. I was half asleep on the couch when I heard the front door handle rattle. I froze. Then I heard whispering. I crept to the peephole. Katie was standing on the porch, phone in one hand, the other on the doorknob. Behind her were 2 guys, hoodies pulled up, one holding something long and metal. I didn't wait. I called 911. They left before the cops arrived, but the door had fresh scratches near the lock, like someone had tried a tool on it. The next day, I filed for a no-contact order. KD was served a week later. She tried to deny it at first, said I invited her over, said I led her on. But the screenshots and the police reports were enough to convince the judge. She was ordered to stay at least 200 feet away from me and my home. I didn't hear from her again after that. But sometimes late at night, I still check the windows. Just in case. Because what started as a few harmless snaps turned into something much darker. I grew up in a small town. Not the kind with one stoplight and a single gas station, but small enough that everyone knew who your parents were and where you'd gone to school. After college, I moved back home to save money and regroup. I got a job at the local auto shop and moved into a rental behind my uncle's bar. It was quiet, predictable, too quiet sometimes, so I downloaded Tinder. I wasn't expecting much. You swipe through the same 4 people every week in towns like mine. Most of the profiles are either high school friends I'd lost touch with, or people who live 40 miles away and just forgot to set their radius. But then I matched with her, Amanda. She was new. Said she'd just moved back from the city to take care of her dad after surgery. Her profile had 3 photos, one in a flannel shirt at a bonfire, one at a lake, and one where she was holding a beer and laughing. She looked casual, down to earth. Her bio just said, "Not here for anything serious. Just bored." We started chatting. She was funny, a little sarcastic, and she asked me questions that made it clear she actually read my profile, which, in my experience, was rare. We talked about music, hometowns, and how there was nothing ever going on in places like this. After a few days, she invited me to a party. Said her cousin was throwing a bonfire on their family's farm about 10 minutes outside of town. I was hesitant at first. I didn't really know her, and I wasn't big on random parties in the middle of nowhere. But she said it wasn't a huge thing. Just a few people, drinks, music, maybe some fireworks. "You should come," she said. "It's better than whatever else you're doing tonight." She wasn't wrong. So I agreed. She sent me a pin on the map. It was just off a county road I didn't know well, nestled between soy fields and forest. I drove out around 8:30 p.m., just as the sun was starting to dip behind the trees. The road narrowed the farther I went. Gravel kicked up behind my truck. I saw a rusted mailbox with the right number and turned down the dirt path. It led to a clearing surrounded by cornfields, with an old barn on one side and a small trailer off to the other. There were no other cars, no lights, no music, just the sound of crickets and the soft rustling of wind through the stalks. I parked and got out looking around. That's when I saw her. Amanda stepped out from the edge of the cornfield waving. "Hey," she called. "Over here." I waved back. "Where's everybody?" She smiled. "They're out by the fire pit. Come on, it's just a short walk through the corn." That gave me pause. "Through the corn? It's faster than walking around," she said. "Trust me." I hesitated, but she laughed and said, "Don't be scared, city boy." So I followed her. The path into the cornfield was narrow, barely wide enough for 2 people side by side. The stalks towered over us, and the deeper we went, the more the light faded. The sound of the wind was louder now, almost like whispers. After a few minutes, I realized we weren't moving toward any fire. It was getting darker, and the ground beneath my boots felt damp. I stopped. "Hey," I said, "are you sure this is the right way?" She didn't turn around, just kept walking. Then she said, "You ever think about how easy it is to disappear out here?" I froze. "What?" She turned slowly, smiling in a way that didn't reach her eyes. "People don't come looking in places like this," she said. "Not for a while." I started backing up. That's when I heard the rustle behind me, followed by the unmistakable sound of a shotgun being cocked. I turned. There was a guy, mid-20s, camo jacket, short buzzed hair, stepping out from between the stalks, gun in hand, pointed at the ground but angled just enough to make his message clear. "Evening," he said. I raised my hands instinctively. "What is this?" Amanda stepped closer, now completely different. Her body language had shifted, no more casual charm, no more flirty banter. She said, "You shouldn't have answered my messages." I looked back at the guy with the gun. He didn't say anything, just stood there watching. My heart pounded in my ears. "I don't know what this is," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "But I'm leaving." "No," she said. "You're not." Then she turned to the guy and said, "You wanted to see for yourself, right?" He nodded. "Yup." She looked back at me. "This is my ex." He didn't believe I was over him, so I had to show him. I blinked. "What?" "You were just the proof," she said. "The bait." The guy raised the shotgun a little higher. "So you're the one she's been screwing around with." I took a slow breath. I didn't even know she had a boyfriend. Amanda laughed. X. And technically we were on a break. I looked between them, calculating. 2 options, run or talk. I didn't like the odds of either. So I gambled. Look, man, I said to the guy, I had no idea. If I'd known, I wouldn't have come. This has nothing to do with me. He didn't respond, just kept his eyes on me. Amanda stepped closer. You're lucky he's being nice, she said. He usually isn't. I took a step back. Okay, I said. If this was just to prove something, fine. You made your point. I'm leaving now. I turned to go. That's when the guy raised the gun. I didn't wait. I bolted. I tore through the corn, stumbling and crashing into stalks. I heard shouting behind me, but I didn't look back. I just kept running, branches slapping my face, dirt flying underfoot. I burst out onto the gravel path, heart hammering, and sprinted to my truck. Got in, locked the doors, started the engine with shaking hands. Headlights on. Reverse. Then drive. I didn't stop until I reached the main road. I pulled into a gas station and called the sheriff. They took it seriously. Turns out I wasn't the first. Amanda, real name Marissa, had pulled something similar before. Lured guys out to isolated places, used them to manipulate or intimidate her ex-boyfriend. No one had ever reported it, until me. They arrested both of them a week later. Unlawful restraint. Brandishing a weapon. Criminal conspiracy. They both pled out. I gave a statement. Then I deleted every dating app one had. I still don't know what would have happened if I hadn't run. If the guy had pulled the trigger. If Amanda had decided to take things further. I matched with her the second week of my freshman year. I just moved into the dorm, still figuring out my schedule and where the decent food spots were. Everything felt new and chaotic. Tinder was just something to pass the time between classes, half boredom, half curiosity. Her name was Riley. Blonde, hazel eyes, soft smile. All her photos looked like they were taken in natural light. No heavy filters, no duck lips, no mirror selfies. Her bio said, film major. I like late-night walks and hate small talk. I messaged her first. We hit it off right away. She was quick-witted, sarcastic, and loved horror movies. She told me she'd been watching Hitchcock films since she was 8 and still cried during the ending of The Sixth Sense, even though she knew the twist. After a few days of chatting, we agreed to meet. We picked a campus cafe, neutral, low stakes. She showed up in a faded band tee and ripped jeans, carrying a sketchbook. She looked like her photos, but even more expressive in person. Her eyes darted around constantly, like she was always scanning people and cataloging the room. We talked for over an hour. She asked a lot of questions, really specific ones. Wanted to know what building I lived in, what my major was, where I was from, how often I went home, whether I stayed on campus during holidays. At the time, I chalked it up to her being curious. Before we parted ways, she asked if I wanted to hang out again soon. I said sure. We met up a few more times that month. Mostly casual hangouts, late-night coffee runs, sketching in the quad, watching movies on my laptop in the common room. She never made a move, and I didn't either. I wasn't looking for anything serious, and I figured we were just becoming friends. Then one night, she kissed me. I didn't pull away, but I also didn't lean into it. I told her I liked spending time with her, but I wasn't sure I was ready for anything more. She looked at me for a long time and said, "Okay, I can wait." That should have been the end of it, but it wasn't. She started showing up more often. I'd leave my dorm in the morning and find her waiting outside, claiming she just happened to be in the area. She'd text me constantly. "Where are you? Who are you with? Why didn't you tell me you were going to the library?" I stopped replying as often. She didn't take it well. She'd send long messages about how I was pulling away and playing games. Then she'd double back and apologize, saying she was just scared of losing me. I told her I needed space. That's when things got weird. She started emailing me from different addresses, sending long, dramatic paragraphs about how she felt our souls were stitched together and how I was trying to cut the thread. Then she started following me. I'd see her across the quad while I was walking to class. Once, I spotted her in the reflection of a library window, standing behind a tree watching me. I confronted her. She said I was imagining things, that I was being paranoid, that I was too logical to understand love. I blocked her on everything. I thought that would be the end of it. It wasn't. A few weeks later, I got a message through my campus email, an address I hadn't given her. "I miss you. I'm transferring." At first, I didn't believe it. I thought she was bluffing. Then second semester, she showed up in one of my general ed classes. She sat 2 rows behind me. I went to the professor and asked if she could be moved. He looked at me like I was being dramatic, said he couldn't change seating based on personal tensions. I switched sections. She found out, started showing up outside my new classes, left notes in my mailbox, slipped drawings under my door, distorted portraits of me with wide, haunted eyes. I reported her to student services. They said they couldn't do anything unless she made a direct threat. Then came the night of the attack. It was late, sometime after midnight. I'd just gotten back from a study session and was walking up the stairs to my dorm when I heard footsteps behind me. I turned. She was there. No expression. Just holding something in her hand. It was a knife. She didn't say anything. Just raised it. I instinctively grabbed her wrist, pushed her back, and ran into the hallway, screaming for help. My RA heard me. So did a few guys from the 3rd floor. They tackled her and held her down until campus police arrived. She was arrested on the spot. The knife was a box cutter, small but sharp. She'd brought it with her from her old dorm. She told the officers she wasn't trying to hurt me, just trying to make me feel what she felt. She was charged with aggravated assault and stalking. Eventually, she was transferred to a psychiatric facility. I dropped the class we'd shared and moved to a different dorm. For weeks, I couldn't sleep. I'd wake up to imaginary footsteps in the hallway. I started checking every shadow, every corner. I stopped going anywhere without headphones or a hoodie. I didn't date again for over a year. Every time someone asked me a question that felt too personal, I pulled back. Every time someone smiled too hard or lingered too long, I wondered what they were hiding. People say college is about freedom. But for me, freshman year became a lesson in boundaries. In how quickly someone can rewrite your life once you let them in. And how no matter how careful you are, some nightmares don't knock first. They just find a way in.